Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to crochet this striped crop top. This pattern is made to measure. As you can see, it fits me really well. The structure that I used is called top down Raglan style, and it's very easy to adjust it to your own size. So I want to start with a neckline ribbing, and the structure is going to be a top down Raglan, which means we'll be working the sleeves and the main body together. The length, honestly, I haven't decided on it yet, but it depends on how much yarn I have. It might be a cropped version. Because I have two colors, I'm gonna make it striped. I might also add a ribbing for the sleeves. It'll depend on how it looks when I finish the sleeves. If needed, I'll add the ribbing. So these are the two yarns I'm going to use. I figure because it's a summer top, it's good to use cotton, which is more breathable. And also this cotton yarn I have has a lot of drape, which is very good for a top like this. When I made the design, I wanted to use this off-white and pink, but later I noticed I have this, which is the same yarn of a different color. And since I have more of this color, I'm going to be using this as the neckline ribbing. Since my yarn calls for a 6mm crochet hook, I just listened to my yarn label and used that. By the way, I started streaming on Twitch at Cherilyn. I do crochet, games, or just chatting. If you want to connect with me personally, don't be afraid to drop me a follow there. I started with a slip knot. And then put my hook in the loop. And I started from the neckline. I made a chain that is the thickness of the neckline. I didn't want the neckline to be too thick, so I just started with 4 chains. Then I chained 1 more to turn. And then starting from the second loop from the hook, I insert my hook and made a single crochet. So I yarn over, pull it up, yarn over and pull through 2. If you're not experienced enough, make sure you place a stitch marker in that first stitch. Just place it in the top 2 loops of that stitch. So that marks the first stitch. And then in the next chain, I insert my hook again, made another single crochet. So I just made 1 single crochet in each stitch. Because I chained 4 to start with, I'll just have 4 single crochets for this row. So to make this ribbing, I just used simple back loop single crochets. And to make that, at the beginning of each row, I just need to chain 1, turn my work, and make 1 single crochet in the back loop in each of the 4 stitches. Starting from the first one, insert in the back loop, and make a single crochet. You should also mark this just in case, especially if you're a beginner. So 1 single crochet in the back loop of each stitch, all the way to the marked stitch. In the back loop, make a single crochet as well. And then I just repeat that row again by chaining 1, turning, and work 1 single crochet in each of the back loops. And don't forget to keep marking your first stitch of each row, because later we're going to be working along the rows We need to know how many rows we've done by the end of it. So you can either start counting from now, or you can count them after you finish. So the thing we're working on now is this, which is the neck ribbing. It's worked back and forth like that. And then later we're going to be working stitches along this ribbing like that. And because we're going to be working raglan style, there's like a stitch ratio between the sleeves and the main body, and that's why the stitch number here needs to be a certain number. And because we're working stitches evenly along this ribbing, the row number of this ribbing needs to match with this. And that's why the row number of this can't just be any number. So basically, if we look at the sweater from top down, it's gonna be a rectangle like this. We have 4 increase spots here. That is gonna be the front body here. That. And that's gonna be this sleeve. And that's gonna be this. That's the back panel. So we need to leave 1 stitch here, 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 here for us to increase. So that's 1 stitch. I'm gonna make the sleeve stitch number X. That's gonna be X. The front panel, I'm gonna make it 2X. Back is the same as front, so 2X as well. So this is just from my personal experience. If my sleeve stitch number is X, I found that generally it's good for my front panel stitch number to be around 2X. You can also do +1 or -1, so 2X plus 1 more stitch, or 2X minus 1 less stitch. But I'm just gonna be doing 2X. So altogether, the stitch number is 6X plus 4. It's okay if you didn't really get it. You just need to make sure your row count here of this color is 6 times X plus 4. So that's the stitch number requirement. And of course, because this is the neckline, you also have to make sure your head goes through it once you finish. So that means the row count needs to be bigger than your head circumference. So here I've done 64 rows. I made sure the row count is a multiple of 6 plus 4. So if that X is 10, then my row count is 64. If that X is 9, then my row count is 58. I hope that makes sense. That X can be any number, pretty much. I said pretty much because it can be too low, otherwise you won't have enough rows to go around your neck. So that's the first requirement. The row count has to be a multiple of 6 plus 4. The second requirement is that this has to go around my head like that, because otherwise you won't be able to put the top on. So when this goes around my neck, it looks like that. So this ribbing measures about 21 inches, but it can stretch to 22 inches. 21 inches is around 54 centimeters. 22 inches is around 56. So I usually count my rows by counting the bumps. That is row 1. This bump is row 2. Row 3, this bump is row 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you count it from this side, then that bump will be row 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after that, I join the last row with the first, making sure the rib is not twisted. To make sure the joined seam from the right side look consistent with the ribbed pattern, when I insert on this edge, I'll only be inserting in the back loop. I'll chain 1 here to make it easier. From the very first stitch, I insert in row 1, and then in this last row, but in the back loop, yarn over and made a slip stitch. Continue doing that for the next stitch. Only insert in the back loop for the last row, yarn over and make a slip stitch. And I did that in the next 2 stitches as well. After I finished the last slip stitch, I chained 1. So at the moment we have the wrong side facing. If we turn it, we have the right side of the ribbing. So next I'm going to crochet along this ribbing for 1 round. And the stitch I used is single crochet. 1 single crochet for each row. So basically work 1 single crochet for this row there, 1 single crochet, this is another row here, and then the next bump is another row. So work 1 single crochet there as well. So I just insert on top of this row. Made a single crochet. Now we need to mark the first stitch because we need to make sure we have a certain stitch number for this round, because the stitch number needs to be the same as the row count. For me, I have 64 rows. I need to have 64 stitches for this round. And then for the next row, I just insert on top of that as well. So as you can see, I'm not having an easy time inserting my hook. That is because my yarn isn't stretchy. So this can happen with some yarn. If this happens to you, you can use a smaller hook. But yeah, I made a single crochet in there, and then I continued with the 3rd row. I made another single crochet. Honestly, this yarn is not the easiest to work with, but this is a row that is a bit challenging, especially for this, so I just took my time. So when I have 63 stitches, I just need to make 1 more. And because this is a join, it's gonna make the row look wider. But I just need to remember I need to work 1 more stitch. So that's stitch 64. And then I'm just gonna slip stitch in the very first stitch, which is marked. So I just insert in both loops, slip stitch, and pull it tight like that. And then I chain 1 to secure that slip stitch. And then from the next row, I started increasing. So if I place it like this, making it a rectangle, this would be the back panel, that's the front panel, and these 2 are the sleeves. And because I put my sleeve stitch number X, and X is 10 for me, so I should have 10 stitches here, 10 stitches here. 2X is the front and the back panel, 20 stitches here, 20 stitches there, and then 1 stitch at each corner as the increase spot. And if I want this as the center back, this should be the center stitch of the 20 stitches back panel. I used 4 stitch markers to mark out the increase spot. So that's the slip stitch. That's the very first stitch I slip stitched into. So starting from that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then after 10 stitches, I'm gonna mark the very next stitch. That's the first corner. So that's the corner one. After this stitch, 10 more stitches for the sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then mark the next stitch. Like that. And then that's the front, so this is 20 stitches. I need to count 20 stitches. 20. And then after that, the stitch after number 20, one more increase spot. And then 10 more stitches after this stitch marker. Mark the stitch after it. And then you should have 10 stitches left here. That being the last stitch. Next row, I switched to the white color by simply pulling it through the loop. The main pattern I used double crochet, but the very first double crochet I made it differently so that the join at the back of the top would look less obvious. So instead of chaining 2, I insert my hook in the very first stitch in both loops, yarn over, made a single crochet, and then in the left vertical loop I insert my hook again, made another single crochet. So I yarn over, pull it through one loop, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So the 2 single crochets stacked up together work as the first double crochet. And then from the next stitch I started working normal double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook in both loops of a stitch. I also made sure I put the white yarn tail on my hook so I can hide it in the work. But to continue this double crochet, yarn over, pull it up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Also, I initially worked in both loops, but then it doesn't look as good, so I switched to working in the back loop only, but I just basically repeated the same thing. The only difference is every time I insert my hook, I insert it in the back loop only. So I worked like that until I got to the very first stitch marker. In this marked stitch, instead of working 1 double crochet, I worked 1 double crochet in it, chained 1, and worked 1 more double crochet in the same stitch. And then I continued from the next stitch, working 1 double crochet in the back loop of each stitch until I got to the next stitch marker again. And in that marked stitch, I did the same thing. So 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet in the very same stitch. So for the entire round, that's basically what I did. Work 1 double crochet in the back loop of each stitch And whenever you see a marked stitch, instead of working a double crochet, work 1 double crochet, chain 1, and another double crochet, all in the same stitch. Make sure you work into the very last stitch. To double check, I counted my stitch. I should have 10 stitches after this increase part. So after this double crochet, I should have 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then I slip stitch in the very first stitch. Insert in both loops and slip stitch. The next round, I didn't want to change color. I wanted to switch color every 2 rounds, so the next round is still in this color. From this round, I start working in both loops. So in the very first stitch, I insert in both loops. First, make a single crochet, and then in the left vertical loop, make another single crochet, then from the next stitch, I started working double crochets, so I just worked 1 double crochet in each stitch in both loops. And whenever you get to this chain 1, which is the space here, you're going to work a double crochet in it, chain 1, and then 1 more double crochet in the same space. So it's the same increase pattern as the last round. And each round I have 4 spaces, so I just did that increase 4 times each round. And then from the next double crochet, continue as usual, which is 1 double crochet in each stitch. I made sure I work all the way in the last stitch, and then slip stitch in the very first stitch. Chain 1 to secure the stitch, and then I switched the color. So I just grabbed that denim color and pull it through the loop. I also made sure to leave some slack at the back so the yarn is not being pulled too tight. And then I started the round in the same way, insert in the very first stitch, and made a single crochet, and then in the left vertical loop another single crochet to work as the first double crochet, and then 1 double crochet in each stitch, and then in the space I did the same increase, which is a double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet, all in the same stitch. So I just continued following that pattern, switching color every 2 rounds to continue increasing like that, and as you can see, the round is already growing. So this is what the back looks like on the wrong side. As you can see, I didn't cut any yarn. I just finished one color and then grabbed the other color from before and continued from there. So yeah, I just alternated between these 2 colors. So if you continue increasing, it looks like this. Let me put it on. So as you can see, when I put it on, I have 2 increased spots here, and then I have 2 at the back as well. So this is where I'm going to stop. So I'm going to grab the one at the back and then try to connect with the one at the front. So as you can see, I still have some distance here. They're not connected, but that's okay because when I work the next round, we're going to make a chain here to connect those 2. So I think this is a good stopping point, which is when they're about to connect, but not really. So from the next round, I'm going to stop increasing. The next round, I'm going to separate the sleeves from the body. But yeah, the reason why I didn't want to leave too much space under my armpit is because I want this part to be relatively tight so that my neckline doesn't move around, if that makes sense. So I finished one round, began my second round. When I reached the first increase spot, I worked one double crochet in it, and then I made a chain of 5. And then I skipped all the stitches for the sleeve. In the next space, directly worked a double crochet in it. So basically, this is the length we just added at the underarm. Here, I suggest you put it on, make sure your arm can fit through the hole. Also, just move around, make sure it's comfortable. And then after that, I worked one double crochet in each stitch, and these stitches are for the back panel. And then when I got to the next increase spot, I did the same thing. So one double crochet in the space, and then chain 5. And then skip all the stitches before the next increase spot. In that space, directly work a double crochet. And then from the next double crochet, I worked one double crochet in each stitch all the way to the end of the row. Here I cut my white yarn because I don't have a lot of white yarn left. I want to work on my sleeves first, get it done, and then I can decide on the length of the top. So I changed color here, and because I cut the white yarn, I don't want it to come off, I tied it with the denim color. So I started my row as usual, one double crochet in each stitch. When I get to the underarm, for those 5 chains, I just worked one double crochet in each of them, but when I insert my hook, I insert in both loops. I also placed a stitch marker in the back bump of the first and the last chain, because later when I work the sleeve, I'm gonna be inserting in those chains. So after the 5 chains, from the very next double crochet, I just started working one double crochet in each stitch. And when I get to the other sleeve, I'm going to do the same thing as I did here, and then I'm going to finish this round, slip stitch in the very first stitch, and start the next round as usual. The next round, I'm just going to be working one double crochet in each stitch all the way around. And then when I switch color to white, I'm just going to be repeating that same round. So that is the body part of the top. For the arm, the next round is supposed to be white, because I only have one round of white here. So I made a slip knot, started from the center chain. The first and the last is marked. I'm going to insert in the center one. And then pull the slip knot through. Chain 1. In the very same stitch, I'm gonna start working that special double crochet, carrying this yarn tail. One single crochet in the back bump of the next chain, worked one more in the next chain, and then in this horizontal double crochet, I worked 2 double crochets. And the next double crochet, I just worked in the very first double crochet after the space. And then worked 1 double crochet in each stitch. After I finished a double crochet on top of the double crochet before the space, I worked 2 double crochets in this horizontal double crochet. And then the next double crochet is in this marked stitch. I still have 1 last double crochet to work here. And after that, I just slip stitched in this first stitch. So from here, I can switch to the other color and then continue working my sleeves as many rounds as I want. And the body is the same. From here, the pattern for both the body and the sleeves is just gonna be 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So this is what it looks like on me. I definitely need to work more rounds here, but I kind of like the length of the sleeve. The only thing is this needs to be a ribbing like that, and this is not. So I'll need to rip this part and do that. But yeah, this is basically what I'm going to do. I'm just gonna work some rounds and put it on, see if I like the length. If I don't like it, I'm gonna rip it and make changes. So I think I'm going to take a break now. I'm gonna go play some games and stream on Twitch. It is currently almost 4 a.m., but I'm a night person. This is what I do. So after separating the sleeves, I did 8 more rounds, measuring 5 inches, which is 13 centimeters. And for the sleeve, I did 1 round of white. Then I made my ribbing. So I first did the bottom ribbing using back loop single crochets, which is the same pattern we used for the neckline ribbing. And each row there are 4 stitches. On the sleeve, I experimented with a slight different pattern. So instead of chaining 4 here and working back and forth, I first did 1 round of single crochet, and then to make these the same length, I did 3 stitches working back loop single crochets back and forth like that. But I think this looks better, so I'll walk you through how to do that. So to do that, I switched color. From the very first stitch, I started working single crochets with 1 single crochet in each stitch in both loops. And when I work this, I try to make my stitches tight, so that the end of the sleeve is a bit tighter than the sleeve itself. Then get to the end of the row. When you finish the last stitch, slip stitch in the first stitch. And then from here, I just make a chain and work back loop single crochets back and forth like that. And as I'm working my rows, I'm also going to attach them to these stitches along the edge. And then it's gonna look like this. which is very similar to the neckline. I actually have a tutorial for that. I'll link it here. But when you watch that video, there are two things you need to remember. The first one is my foundation chain number is 3, and then I chain 1 more as the turning chain. The second one is every time I come back to this edge, I made 2 slip stitches with 1 in each of the following 2 stitches. So yeah, because that's a tutorial, it doesn't have the same stitch number here. That's why I need to tell you those numbers. So just watch that tutorial and then you should be able to finish the sleeve. And like I said before, I made my bottom ribbing differently, but you can just make it in the same way as you do the sleeve. And in the end, don't forget to weave in your ends on the wrong side of the top. You can just use a yarn needle to do that. But yeah, when you finish all that, this top is done.